Good morning, viewers. Well, this morning on the Lava Garden Show, we've had a momentary turn of the wind, and stuff's coming kind of from the southeast here, and it's moving things this way. We're starting to get some of the fog in this area. As you take a look out here in the horizon, you can see how blurry everything is. Well, it looks like the worst case scenario this morning for us. The plume is heading straight up rather than turning to the southwest. It's flattening out and it's moving along over most of Puna, heading towards Hilo. But despite the turn of the wind, Bill continues to plant more crops, and Pele continues to make more land for future forests. And coral reefs right down here in Kapoho. No laughing matter for sure, huh? It's a real disaster. So, let's have a look at what's going on in the garden first. My dragon fruit plantings are being wildly successful. They are covered in little geckos. A big fat one hiding right there. Thinks I can't see him because he's green. Yeah, this is working out well. Plants bore their first crop this year after about 18 months in the ground. The whole idea of using coconut fiber over here is working really well. The roots are spreading into the stuff. It's a lot of things I plant here that don't really do all that well. Dragon fruit is one of those that does well, right along with pineapples. They just love this place. Yeah, so I am aware from talking to people in the general area here as they travel through the nursery, and so somehow or another a myth has gotten started that dragon fruit won't grow this high up in the mountains. We're not real high over here, 1,600 feet or so, 1,680 at the back of the property. But that is higher, apparently, than most people think this plant will actually thrive. It is true that the pink and the red varieties, the Hylocereus lundatus, or whatever you want to call it, it is true that those types seem to be really slow to come to fruit up here. I've had almost 5 years on some of those before they started to crop, and they just don't seem to crop that well at this elevation. Yet with the Solenocereus megalanthus, or some people call it Hylocereus megalanthus, whatever, that's the yellow dragon fruit, and the hybrids of the yellow dragon fruit, they all seem to thrive here. They bear in less than 2 years. They bear twice a year. They bear really good crops for me. And so I would like to dispel the illusion in people's minds that dragon fruit will not grow, you know, at the higher elevations in Hawaii. It does. And like I say, most of this stuff's in belief. Be careful what you believe. Okay. You go right ahead and tell my cactus they don't grow up here. I find that pretty funny. Well, the flowers on the lilikoi hedge are kind of closed this morning. This is more of a daytime bloomer, but the number of flowers, you can see the buds all over here, is huge. So it appears that we are heading for a really jumbo crop. Passion fruit, or lilikoi, is definitely a very good crop here in Hawaii. Again, just like the dragon fruit and the pineapples, this thing thrives here. Little attention. It's just kind of amazing how well it does in the native conditions with very few modifications. Most of what had to be done here to get this to work was put up a trellis to hang them on, and then I have to continuously keep the vines pruned back from creeping into the fence and out to the road. Otherwise, we'd close Kapua with passion vine. Boy, generally I like to focus on my garden successes rather than my garden failures, but here's one of my garden failures. This is my giant lilikoi vine. I moved it last year when I expanded the nursery, made cuttings and started a new one. I had trellises here. They were made out of guava sticks. You can kind of see them right there in the mess. They didn't hold up. Guava just doesn't last long enough and isn't strong enough as it begins to get rotted to put up with this vine. So what we end up with instead is a giant lily-coin mess. It's no wonder I like corn so much. It really has a tendency to be a more well-controlled crop, standing nice and erect and stiff, instead of that mess over there. The recently planted Roselle, or fruiting hibiscus, Jamaica, is doing quite well, growing nicely. Again, another very well-adapted crop in this area. And next to it here, you'll see both Jewel and Okinawan purple sweet potatoes growing side by side. And note that they are growing out of the dead straw from the hayfield, which is right there. We killed it with the weed block, then planted directly into it, and sweet potatoes are managing quite nicely, planted with no-till directly into dead sod. Right here I have my next crop of sweet corn coming along very nicely. Good color. Looks like I probably fertilized it pretty well. Things look normal there. Next to it over here I have some Japanese hulless popcorn, robust variety. Checking in with the pineapples this morning, I see that the Florida landrace pineapple is producing fruits in less than 1 year. Should be ripe by the time we hit 12 months from planting on this. That's fairly extraordinary in our garden. You'll notice also a tremendous quantity of little slips there, the ratoon type, right below the fruit. I've never seen a pineapple with so many ratoon suckers. And, well, obviously we're going to have a whole lot of offsets from this thing. It's going to depend on the fruit quality as far as how many of them I actually replant out here in the field. I'm uncertain as to how this thing tastes, but wow, it is productive. And interested parties, I will probably have some for sale later on in the year when we harvest. Last year's pineapple plantings are doing well. Now that the weed block's been out here for a while, the sod underneath is dead, and so we're going to get busy putting in even more pineapples in this area later on this year. And my Himalayan purple striped bamboo, it was a puny little 1-gallon pot about 1.5 years back, is now a monster. It is gradually working on eating the world alive. It's a timber bamboo that's a clumper with pretty purple stripes and edible shoots. We'll be able to build a house with this stuff in about 2 years. Unreal. What a beautiful thing. Over here we planted some Ceylon cinnamon. This is one of the better varieties. Even the leaves are so cinnamon smelling that you can cook with them, not just the bark like with most cinnamon. I have cassia cinnamon here too, and it's okay, but not like this one. Fuyu persimmon that I planted just a few years back here from a bare root is making flower buds. Look at this, it's gonna make persimmons. Oh boy, here's another one. This one is Fuyu Jiro. Recently I put Fuyu Imoto in the ground, and it seems to be doing pretty well too, but it's just planted last February. So, moving on from the garden report into the lava report this morning. Not a lot new as far as the volcanoes are concerned. We had another explosion at the top of Kilauea last night. 5.4, I believe, was the earthquake reading on it. These are actually not earthquakes, though. I say they're more like shotgun blast concussions, because it's actually caused by just the steam and the rocks ejecting. Anyway, it's not really slowing down much up there, and so the chance we're going to get back into our favorite national park anytime soon is not that great. This makes me sad, but I'll live with it. Yesterday I had reported on the idea that the state and the county here may actually pull off a land swap for people living down in the lower Puna area that lost their properties. I had advocated that I think it's a great idea. Have a few viewers come back, again with the same report. They think it's really good too. There has been small opposition, at least. I've noticed a few editorials in the local newspaper by people who think this is a terrible idea. Anyway, more on that. Last night Governor Ige and Big Island Mayor Harry Kim were both on talking about how they really do plan to do this. I had said, I believe previously, that it was somewhat the government's fault is why we had people living in those areas, so they do hold some responsibility about helping people get back out, because they're the ones that allowed the zoning and the subdivisions to occur there, period. Also, the state subsidized the insurance policies in Lava Zone 1, which is probably something they shouldn't have done in the past. It's coming back to haunt us because it's costing us about $2 million a day to deal with the mess. There's no way to stop lava, so the state and the county do have land. Some of it they mentioned up towards Maku'u, where it's a lava zone 3. It's safer, and they do have property where people can exchange for other lots. I think it's an outstanding idea. Not only will get people out of zone 1 and 2, places where they're not going to be a liability and in danger all the time, but it's also going to help the property tax rolls come back up by doing this. State's got nothing to lose on it, but all to gain. To some extent, it's aloha, you know, that we do try to take care of people here in Hawaii. It's the compassionate aspect of the life here. That's why the place is world famous. But money is always at the root, and so property taxes, you let people swap their land out, you're going to be able to tax them again. Right now they have lost millions of dollars in property tax roll by this, because all those homes are worthless. You can't tax them anymore. So it looks like that's moving forward. You know, anybody got comments on it, talk to me about it. I don't care. I don't know any more than anybody else does. I just picked it up off the news. Otherwise, away from lava and the disaster and onto fake news, or not fake news, but just the media in general. Yesterday morning I was on the web, and I happened to notice that NASA was going to have a live press conference, which is something they very seldom do. That's unusual, and it had to do with some of the discoveries that the Curiosity rover had made on Mars. To begin with, just a statement on the rovers. These things were supposed to die years ago. I don't even remember how long ago they were supposed to go out of activity. The fact that they've managed to keep these things running and continue to turn up science with them, I find extraordinary. We really should build more things in the United States, man. Because, wow, when we get down to doing it right, we can really do it right. These rovers have been incredible. If they were my car, I could put, 900,000 miles on one without an oil change. Anyway, when I saw this, I said, oh my goodness. So I immediately dialed in, and I happened to I was within 2 minutes of the live feed on it at 8 o'clock here in the morning in Hawaii, and I caught it and listened to it, and yeah, there's a lot of boring science on some of it, and as usual, NASA is not going to commit to these ideas, but what they did find was they definitely came up with organic chemicals in the surface of Mars soil in what they consider to be an ancient lake bed. They have the bits of the organic chemicals, but they can tell by the way they found them that they're connected to larger organic molecules. I mean, they have some pretty good size organic chemistry present in that ancient lake bed, and it's also very shallow because the rover can't dig too far into the surface, and all this is quite affected by solar and radiation from the galaxy. And so if they could only get deeper, they could come up with more conclusive and better results. One of the European explorers has a much deeper drill, and so we may get some more on this. But it's also been crossed over with some of the guys working with gas spectrometers who've realized that there's a seasonal rise and fall of the methane production on Mars. And they don't know whether the rise, which peaks in summer and slumps in winter, is because of subterranean bacterial activity or if it's because of radiation affecting rocks. So NASA's not exactly committing to the fact that they found life on Mars, but they sure are hedging towards the fact that there very well may be some life on Mars that's worth further investigation. I'm not talking about, you know, green guys and flying saucers. We're talking probably about microbes here, or even ancient evidence of microbes. But I found it quite extraordinary, and I mean, I was glued to it. Of course, you know, I'm kind of a space buff. I look up all the time, and I see space as being one of our frontiers to explore. But when I switched over to the national news on my television, all I heard about was what the Cardassians had to say to Trumpy, and then some article about a pet terrier that harassed a pet crocodile for 10 years, and the crocodile finally ate the terrier, you know. Okay, well, that's kind of funny, but I've seen dogs that harassed farm cats in northern Wisconsin finally get their own too. Oh boy, you ever seen a cat latch on the back end of a barking dog? He can take him 40 acres, one swipe at a time. And so I don't blame the crocodile for eating the terrier either, but it sure doesn't quite match up to the importance of NASA thinking they might have discovered life on Mars. The rest of the media slowly caught up. By that evening, I saw a local broadcast here on the island about it. It was short, but this morning, though, in the national news, I did see little briefs about it. There was a lot of other stuff that was far more important, like what happened with Dancing with the Stars and such, but they did mention it. It finally got into the media. So this one's, I guess, just a little personal. Call it a Bill's editorial here. Because I have expressed certain opinions and viewpoints about, you know, what happens with our lawmakers, I have had a number of people come back to me and claim that I'm being political, you know, and, well, I assure you, to begin with, it's politicians that politicize issues, not people, okay? And as far as I'm concerned, you know, politics in our nation is just one of those sporting events that we use to help us pick leaders temporarily, you know, and until we come up with a better way to do business, it'll just have to do. That's all there is to it. But as far as myself having any political affiliations or allegiances, you got this guy way wrong, okay? I had already done a video previously about beliefs, and political parties and beliefs are about the same with me as churches and beliefs. You know, I've never met a religion that I agreed with or liked, and I haven't ever met a political party that expresses the viewpoints totally that I feel. You know, so judging a man through the eye of politics is a whole lot like trying to determine what sort of a person it might be by what football team they follow around. Really, it's that much. So, you know, as far as anybody who thinks I actually have a political agenda, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I do not. You know, as far as I'm concerned, politics in the United States is always, you know, the lesser of two evils. That's the way I see it. I've never seen anybody that ever actually met my standards as far as that's concerned. So for me, it's more who comes closer to meeting standards that I have as a person and who violates more of them. And that's how I make determinations, and it has nothing to do with political parties. It only has to do with the individuals. I determine who I would like to see in charge in this nation by a very short list of criteria. Number one on the list, do they express love and compassion? Some people do it more than others. I don't think anybody I run across with in politics actually expresses quite enough of it. We do see a little more of it here in Hawaii than we generally see in Washington. That's a fact, but it's the nature of the society here that happens. So love and compassion and the expression of is the number one criteria that I'm judging other human beings by when I'm looking at you. If you haven't got a lot of it, I don't think much of you. Politician, next door neighbor, whoever you are. The second thing I would judge leaders by is their sustainability. Often we find in our society that it's the next quarter, profits the next quarter, profits the next quarter, the economy. That these are the kinds of things that they tend to focus on. They oftentimes are focused on very, very short-term goals. I'm looking at stuff in 7 generations. And in my mind, people who don't see our society, our planet, farm crops, the forests, and whatever, in a sustained way of looking into the future to continue and perpetuate the production of these sorts of things without interruption, if they're not sustainable, again, they don't meet my standards. And fortunately, that's doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Basically only got 2 choices of Democrats and Republicans, and they're about the same thing from 2 different angles. And sustainability is generally not an issue for them. Now, again, I'm so excited about the idea of the land swap here in Hawaii from Ige and Harry Kim, because this is looking towards what will happen to us in the future. They're attempting to get people out of Lava Zone 1. I think this is an excellent idea. It shows compassion, it shows sustainability, and it shows forward thinking in time. And so politicians who are worried about the next quarter, or if the economy becomes more important to them than the nature of life on Earth, I've got much to say for them or any use for them at all. And so again, it's not political. The third criteria, and that is fear. I'm not a man who fears much of anything. I wouldn't be in front of this camera talking to the rest of the world through the internet if I was really scared, all right? Fear is not a thing that I live in hardly at all. Yet fear is oftentimes used, no matter what side of the political spectrum, in different ways to control masses, population, swing votes, and so on. People react to it, and generally I find it very distasteful and rather disgusting. And so individuals who are in politics who utilize fear to be able to gain access and power and control, I think they're very small people, and it's shameful, frankly. It really is. I have a very, very, very short list of things in this world that I am afraid of. It's probably about 3 things: lawyers, crocodiles in my bedroom after midnight, and my own government. I say that's my greatest fear in life. Apparently, there is very little of anything that the government can do to alleviate my fears because I'm afraid of them. I'm not afraid of myself, and I'm not afraid of anything else around me, as I say. So no political party actually meets the standards and criteria that I have as far as what's real on this planet, and it's always just the best of 2 evils or so. I just happen to live on this planet. I care about it, and I want it to be here for other people in the future, long after I'm gone, because I only got a short time left here, so what the heck do I care? Aloha. You all have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in.